All right, so we finally have our rocket working in a way that we're able to control it with our keyboard. The very last piece of the puzzle, and we could be done with this project, is these sliders. That we're able to create these sliders, and then as we change it, it changes the background color. So that's going to be what we're going to look at today's lesson. So, as always, there will be a link in the video description to follow along with this code over here. And what we had previously, what we have at the moment, something that looks like this, where our background is being set to black using a string, right? Because we're wrapping the word black in these quotation marks, making it a string, in order to specify the color. We can change it to red or green, yellow, etc. But in order to get the kind of effect that we can get kind of a spectrum of colors, we need to learn about what's called the Rgb color system. And the Rgb color system is a way of describing colors as a amount of red, the amount of green, and the amount of blue. So I have the following picture over here that looks at RGB, and we can see kind of like when we're mixing paints in real life, it's the exact same thing. When we have different ratios, proportions of these colors mixed together, a different color comes out. So in between red and green, yellow, in between red and blue is purple, in between all three is white. And if you change, if there's more blue or more green, you'll get a different shade of yellow, a different shade of pink. The way computers represent this is an amount from 0 to 255. So if I say my blue value is 0, then I'm saying there's no blue. If I'm saying my blue value is 255, then I'm saying all the blue. I put all the blue in there. And the same for the rest of them. So if I mix all the blue with all the red and all the green, so 255 for all three colors, I'm going to get white. Let's have a look at that. The way we can do that is instead of putting the string red, we can put three numbers inside of background. So I can put 0, 0, 0, and if I hit run, we get a black background. Black is the absence of color. We don't have red, we don't have green, don't have blue. So that's making sense. If we put maximums for all of them, 255, 255, 255, we should get a white background, which we do. And then you can mix these around. If I put 10 and 12, we're going to get different colors because we're changing them in different amounts, right? So it goes red, then green, then blue. Okay, so we know how to change our background. The question is, how could we get them to change according to like some sort of user input? In a similar way that we changed our X and Y coordinates according to this, how can we do it for color? And what we see in our final project of is that we have these sliders. So let's learn a little bit more about like how to Google and how to solve our own problems by looking at documentation. One of the most powerful tools you can have as a programmer, and it's the thing that probably programming teaches you most, is like if you don't know something, Google it. So let's do that together. I'm going to Google the following. I'm going to say P5JS, because that's the name of the library we're looking at, and I'm going to say sliders. And I search that. There's a bunch of different things. There's some cool videos that maybe I can watch, but I'm going to go to this one over here, this first one, which is a reference for create slider. And over here, I can see some code. I can zoom in a little bit, so hopefully, so it becomes a little bit clearer. So over here, we can see some code that talks about how to create a slider. So it's creating a slider as a global variable. It's initializing the slider inside of setup. And then it's getting the value of that slider inside draw. The value of the slider is like how much you can see a working demo over here, right? If the value of the slider is, if this is at 0, if the slider is all the way at the beginning, the value of the slider is 0. If it's at the end, the value of the slider is its maximum. So we can see we have these different kind of commands for slider. If we scroll down a little bit more, we can start to see some additional information about how slider works. So this create slider method over here, which is the one that makes it pop up to the screen, takes in a bunch of arguments, and we can see what these arguments are here. It takes in a min value, so what's the minimum value of the slider, a maximum value of the slider, value, with the default value of the slider, so where it starts, and step. So if I put my step as 1, when I change my slider over by 1 unit, it changes by 1. If I put my step at 10, if I move my slider to the 10, it's going to change by 10 every time. Let's put this into code to see how to do this. So I'm going to follow what they say. So I create this global variable slider. Let's as well, we're going to comment out our rectangles so that we have some space. So we create this global variable slider. We don't initialize it to anything. We don't set its value. Then inside of setup, we can say slider is equal to create slider. And now we know it takes 4 arguments. It takes a minimum, right, 0, a maximum, whatever we want it to be, let's say 1,000, its starting value, put it as 100, and let's put a step. Let's put a step as 100. Then we set its position. So then we can say slider dot position. Let's make sure that that's right. We can go back into the documentation. We can see here, position. So slider.position, let's put it right at the bottom. We know that we have a width 600 by 600. So with sliders, you can actually go off of the canvas, as you can see. So I can put this at, let's put it at 10. So it's just a little bit to the left, to the right rather. And let's put it at like 610. I create this, if I hit run, we can see we got a slider over here. Okay, now we want to get the value from that slider. The way we can do that is I'm going to show you this. So we can say let value, right? We can call this any variable again. Let value is equal to slider, and you say dot value, and you say with a open close brackets. We'll deal in future lessons the difference between like slider.value like this and slider.value with open close brackets. But for now, just know it's slider.value, and we can see that from the documentation over here. And then I can put inside of text, again, like we've done many times before, that value, and I'll put it right in the middle, 300, 300. If I hit run, notice how when I move the slider now, it changes. So we can see it goes from 0 to 1,000, and it's stepping each time by 100 going up, right? So that's this 100. Okay, so with that done, we can now think, okay, we have the slider that changes value according to this. We want to bind the slider to the color of our background. What if we did something like this? So if we put that, we can perhaps we can keep the text for now. But in the place of one of these red, green, or blue over here, right, I could put in that value. So maybe over here, I can put value. And now if I hit run, let's see what happens. Look, as I move the slider, it changes. All right. Now a couple things here. Firstly, we know that colors, the color range, only goes from 0 to 255. So let's change our maximum. The next one, we can start it at 0. And then to step 100, every time we're going to lose a lot of color in between. So let's put this down to 0. Hit run now, and now we get a much clearer kind of picture or spectrum of the red color. Now we can rename this. We can say let red is equal to slider.value and change this to red. Get rid of the text. Hit run. And now, same thing, but just better variable names. We now need to create the different sliders for the different colors. We have it for red. We want to do it for green and blue. So the way we're going to do that is that we need to create multiple slider instances. So we're going to create something like let slider 1, slider 2, slider 3, and we're going to name them right. So I'm going to create let red slider. I'm going to say let blue slider. I'm going to say let green slider. So these are different sliders for our colors. Now we need to initialize all of them. So we're going to say red slider is equal to create slider and red slider dot position. Now I'm going to just copy paste all of this so it makes it a bit quicker. And then I'm going to change this one to blue slider. And I'm going to say blue slider. And then green slider and green slider. The last thing is position, because you notice if I run this, we're going to get an error because right now we're asking for slider. So let's change this back to red slider dot value. if I run this, we can see we're still only getting one slider. But if I change this, we can see we're getting like behind, there's something there. That's because we've superimposed. We've put the red slider on top of the green slider on top of the blue slider. Look at the position. So we need to change that. So maybe I'll put the blue slider at 100 and I'll put the green slider at 200. And now if I hit run, we have those three sliders. Let's put a little bit more space in between. Let's go maybe like 140 and we'll go like 280. Let's hit run. Okay, cool. We have our different sliders. All we have to do now is bind their values to our background. So we need to get our value for blue. So let blue is equal to blue slider dot value. And we need to get our green. So I'm going to say let green is equal to green slider dot value. And then in place of here, I can say red, blue, green. And now when I hit run, oh, we have an error. Let's try to see what the error is. So we're seeing at line 26, this might be quite small. At line 26, there's an unexpected bracket. So we go to line 26, and we can see we need to have an opening and a closing bracket. Okay, so we fix that problem. Run it again. And now, as I change this, all of them are changing appropriately. Let's make sure. So if I put all of these, I know this is my blue, so we get blue. Put blue to 0. This should be green. Perfect. This should be red. Awesome. And we're changing the different ratios and getting different colors as we change it. We can bring back our rocket. And now we pretty much have our final product that we set out to create. The only difference is maybe the text above red, green, and blue. You guys can go ahead and add that. And this cool show grid thing. I'll maybe leave that as a challenge to be how can you create this this crosshair with the show grid. Let me know if you're wanting another video or explanation to how to create this. But that brings us to the end of our rocket project. So we've created a rocket, you can move around with the arrow keys, change a color, and there's a lot we had to learn to go through this. From user input to global and local scope, shapes, algebra, sliders, constants, kind of like down arrow, left arrow, a lot of cool stuff. So stay tuned for future projects, exploring new things, making maths and coding fun and exciting. I'll see you guys then.